Welcome to another episode of Unlocking the Upside. I'm Jeff Robinson, and with me as always is James, our resident chart skeptic and visualization veteran. Today we're diving into something that affects every investment decision we make, yet often goes unnoticed: the way we visualize financial data.
That's right, Jeff. Before you go off on one of your famous tangents about the time you spotted a market reversal in a chart pattern, let's focus on why this matters to our listeners.
Always keeping me in check, James. You know, this topic actually came to mind last week when I was reviewing some client presentations. Financial data visualization sounds boring, right? But what if I told you that poor chart design actually contributed to the 1987 stock market crash, costing investors over $500 billion in a single day? Today, we're exploring how the way we present financial data can literally make or break markets.
That's such a fascinating connection to draw. When markets were in free fall during Black Monday, traders couldn't make sense of all the data flooding their screens.
And you know what's really striking about this? We're still dealing with similar issues today, just in a different form. Instead of not having enough good ways to visualize data, we now have almost too many options. Every trading platform comes with dozens of fancy charts and graphs, but are they actually helping us make better decisions?
That reminds me of what Edward Tufte calls chart junk, all those unnecessary decorative elements that actually make it harder to understand what we're looking at.
The impact of chart junk is actually quite staggering. According to that CFA Institute study from 2018, analysts spent 22% more time trying to interpret charts with decorative elements compared to simpler versions showing the same information. Think about what that means during a market crisis. That's precious time wasted trying to decode unnecessary visual elements.
That's particularly troubling when you consider how these visualizations affect client communications. If a client misinterprets a chart because of unnecessary visual elements, that could lead to poor investment decisions.
And here's what really concerns me about these flashy visualizations. They can introduce subtle but significant biases into our analysis. Those shadows and 3D effects can make certain data points seem more important than others, even when they're not.
So how do different cultures approach this problem? I've heard there are some interesting regional differences.
Oh, that's one of the most fascinating aspects. Research shows that Western analysts tend to prefer more minimalist, straightforward designs, while some Asian markets are more comfortable with dense, information-rich visualizations. This creates quite a challenge for global financial firms trying to standardize their visual communication.
That cultural dimension really adds another layer of complexity to the whole thing.
And now we're seeing this whole new challenge with mobile devices and digital transformation. Have you ever tried to look at a detailed candlestick chart on your phone? It's like trying to read a newspaper through a keyhole. The shift toward digital platforms has forced us to completely rethink traditional approaches to chart design.
Well, that brings up an interesting point about Tufte's data-ink ratio concept. How do you balance simplicity with necessary complexity?
That's where things get really interesting. The principle is straightforward: maximize the proportion of pixels that's actually showing data rather than decoration. But in practice, it becomes incredibly complex. Sometimes you need additional elements like volume bars or moving averages that might lower the data-ink ratio but provide crucial context for decision making.
The regulatory requirements must add another layer of complexity to all this.
Exactly. SEC filing requirements and FINRA rules often dictate specific types of visual presentations that might not align with what we'd consider optimal design principles. It's like trying to paint a masterpiece while following a strict rule book about which colors you can use and where you can put them.
Looking ahead, how do you see new technologies changing the game?
That's where things get really exciting. Imagine being able to walk through a three-dimensional visualization of market data using AR or VR, or using gesture controls to manipulate charts and graphs. But here's the crucial part. We'll still need to apply these fundamental principles of visual clarity and efficiency.
The balance between innovation and practical utility seems critical here.
You know what's really striking? Despite all our technological advances, we're still grappling with the same basic challenge that traders faced on Black Monday: how to quickly make sense of complex financial data in a way that leads to better decisions.
That really brings it full circle from where we started. It's all about making sure we can see the signal through the noise.
And that's perhaps the most important lesson from all of this. Whether we're dealing with a market crisis or just day-to-day investment decisions, the quality of our visual tools can make the difference between insight and oversight. As we continue to advance technologically, we need to ensure that we're not just creating more sophisticated ways to present data, but actually making it easier for people to understand and act on that information effectively. Hey there, I'm Jeff Robinson, and before we wrap up, I want to share something that's transforming how we think about investment education. Throughout my career analyzing markets, I've seen firsthand how proper understanding can make or break investment decisions. That's why I created Insight One. It's where real-world market experience meets modern learning technology. Think of it as having a seasoned Wall Street mentor in your pocket, one that adapts to your learning style and schedule. We've taken the same analytical frameworks I use to earn those institutional investor rankings and made them accessible and actionable for everyone. Whether you're building your first portfolio or managing client assets, Insight One gives you the tools to make more informed investment decisions. Find us on the App Store, Google Play, or at theinvestmentanalyst.com. Your journey to better investing starts here.